Hi, this is Tamara at mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm demonstrating how to crochet the corner window rectangle, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description or simply type in Moogly corner window rectangle in your favorite search engine and it should pop right up. Now, this small rectangle was designed for Warm Up America and their 7-inch by 9-inch section drives. Warm Up America is a fantastic charity that provides blankets, hats, scarves, and mittens to those in need throughout the states. And one of the things they do is they collect these 7-inch by 9-inch rectangles that volunteers then assemble into blankets for those who need them. To make this blanket, I used a USH 5mm crochet hook and 58 yards of Red Heart Super Saver. It is made using the corner-to-corner style with a combination of solid and open blocks. If you're not familiar with the corner-to-corner box stitch, don't worry, we'll be going over it today. When you send in your sections to Warm Up America, make sure you use a worsted weight acrylic yarn like the one I've got here, which is Red Heart Super Saver. I'm using Papaya pooling, which is just a fun and exciting colorway. Let's get started. Here you can see the finished corner window rectangle. It's made using the diagonal box stitch, which is worked corner to corner. And as I mentioned, it's got a combination of solid blocks, which are the usual blocks you see in this stitch, as well as open blocks, where we chain one and sort of skip one space, if you will, and have a sort of an open look to those blocks. I've used that stitch in lots of other patterns before, so it was fun to combine it in this rectangle for Warm Up America. So let's begin. We're going to start row 1 on the wrong side with a slip knot on our hook. Then we begin with a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I like to crochet into the underneath hump of the chain rather than into either of the top 2 loops. You can, of course, crochet into whichever part you prefer. I'm going to work a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. So I begin by yarning over and then I count out 1, 2, 3, 4, and put a double crochet right in that chain. Insert my hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now I do the same double crochet in the last 2 chains. There's one, and here's one in the last chain right next to the slip knot. You can see here, by working into the underneath hump of the chain, we've created a nice smooth line there with what's essentially our chain 3 turning chain without having to have a twist. And with this little block here, block 1, that is officially row 1 of our rectangle. Now we're ready for row 2. For row 2, we're going to be working from the right side, so we're going to turn, but I like to do my chaining before I turn. And I start again by chaining 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just going to let that little block there hang out until I'm ready for it. I begin the same way after that chain 6 by double crocheting in the 4th chain from the hook. So I yarn over 1, 2, 3, 4, and put my double crochet right in there. And then double crochet in the remaining 2 chains here. Oops, there we go. Straighten out my yarn a little bit there. I always like to pull a bit up from the skein before I begin. Sometimes it likes to try and join me. There we go. So now we've got our second block made, and we're ready to slip stitch into this one. So you can see how it's just hanging out right there. What I like to do is sort of bring it up towards me. I just flip it up like I'm opening the lid of a box, like so. Then I'm able to slip stitch right into this chain 3 space here, right in between the chain 3 and the double crochet. I just insert my hook and slip stitch right there. Now we can begin the second block of row 2. We chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we work 3 double crochets in that same chain 3 space that we joined to. 1, 2, and 3. And with that, we have finished row 2. We need to look at it, even though it's making a rectangle, we kind of look at it this way. Row 1 had 1 block, row 2 has 2 blocks, row 3 will have 3 blocks. And now we're ready to begin row 3, which begins the same way, but it's going to feature the open blocks. We start again with a chain of 6. 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. But now, instead of double crocheting in each of those remaining 2 chains, we're instead going to chain 1, skip the next chain, and double crochet in the chain after that. This gives us our open windows. Now we're ready to do that flip again, where we sort of open the lid to our box and flip it up. And then right there, we've got that chain 3. We can slip stitch into that space. And now we start the block that will go right here. We chain 3, double crochet right into that chain 3 space again. Now we chain 1 and double crochet into the space again. There we go. And when I do that one, I like to separate those double crochets with my fingers just a little bit. Now we've got another block waiting for us right here. So we're going to slip stitch to that chain 3 space and make another block the same way. Chain 3, pull up a little bit more yarn here, double crochet in that same chain 3 space, chain 1, and double crochet in that chain 3 space one last time. There we go. And that is what it should look like at the end of row 3. From here on out, we're going to go back and switch back and forth between those solid blocks and the open blocks every other row. So that means that from here until we get to the last 2 rows, even numbered rows will have closed blocks and odd numbered rows will have open blocks. Row 4, of course, is an even numbered row, so we'll have our closed blocks. I've got my chain 6 made because we're starting a new row. And then I come down to that 4th chain from the hook and put a double crochet in that chain, as well as the next 2 chains. 1 and 2. There we are. Then we do that flip again, just like we're opening a box, and that should put that chain 3 space right where we need it so that we can slip stitch right into it and connect that block. Then we chain 3 again and put another solid block right in that chain 3 space. Now, in row 1, we had 1 block. In row 2, we had 2 blocks. In row 3, we had 3 blocks. So in row 4 here, we'll have 4 blocks. So that means I'm all lined up here now to join to this slip stitch to this chain 3 space and chain 3 again and work 3 double crochets all into that chain 3 space. There's 2 and 3. Isn't this yarn fun? You get a new yarn color with every couple of stitches. Now you can see, we can look at our work and see we're lined up with another block, so we need to slip stitch into that chain 3 space and make the last block here for row 4. We chain 3, pull up a little bit more yarn, and work 3 double crochets into that chain 3 space. 1, 2, and 3. So now, if we stop and look at our work, you can see we went 1, 2, 3, and now 4 blocks across in row 4. For row 5, we go back to making those open blocks, but we start again with a chain of 6. 4, 5, 6. Double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. And I always do try to go into those underneath humps. Then we're going to chain 1, skip the next chain, and double crochet in the chain after that. We've started our next row of open blocks. So now we flip open that lid again that lines us up with that chain 3 space. So we slip stitch right in there. And now we're just going to continue to fill in those spaces until we get to the end of the line again. And we should have a total of 5 blocks here in row 5. So remember, this is an open block row. So we start with a chain 3 and then double crochet into that chain 3 space chain 1, and double crochet into the same space. This lines us up to join to the next block with a slip stitch, and do it again. Chain 3, double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in that same chain 3 space. Take a moment to separate those double crochets at the base there. Slip stitch into the next block, chain 3 again, double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet into that same chain 3 space. We've got one more block here to join to, so we're going to slip stitch right into there, chain 3, and then double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet again. And with that, there we go. We have finished row 5 with 5 open blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the next 3 rows, we just continue in pattern. Row 6 will be back to solid blocks, and there will be 6 of them. Row 7, back to open blocks, and there will be 7. Finally, row 8 will have 8 solid blocks. So I'll meet you at the end of row 8. All right, and here we are at the end of row 8, and you should have 8 solid blocks across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we're ready to start maintaining the width while increasing the length so that we can create our 7 by 9 inch rectangle for Warm Up America. For row 9, we're going to be going back to our open squares, but now we're going to be decreasing along this side while we're increasing along this side. So here's how row 9 begins. Rather than starting with my chain 6 as I've been doing, I'm going to go ahead and turn and actually slip stitch across the last 3 stitches of the previous block. So now I want these to be loose slip stitches. Even if we're not putting a border on this ourselves, which you can do, but even if you're not, we want to make sure that it's easy for the volunteers to connect our squares to other squares, including ourselves. If you're using this to make your own project, you want to make sure that your squares are easy to sew to other squares and it's easy to get your hook in there. So to do that, what we want to do is use a loose slip stitch. So here's how we do that. We go right on into that first stitch we made, or rather the last stitch of the previous row there. We're going to pull up our loop, but rather than pulling it through right away, I'm going to take just a moment to pull both of those loops up high and make sure that loop I've just pulled up gets its full height before I go ahead and pull it through the previous loop there. Now, after I do that, I'm not going to pull back on my working yarn. That would tighten it up as well. I'm just going to let it hang out right there and go on to the next stitch and do the same thing. Another loose slip stitch. One more here in our third double crochet. And we've worked our way back across. Now you can see this has brought me to this chain 3 space right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch right into that chain space. And now I can turn and make a block that goes right here. So I'm going to chain 3. We don't need to start with our chain 3 now. And I'm going to put our next block right here. And remember, it's going to be an open block for this row. So that means it's a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. There we go. And you can see this has brought us to this next block where we can join to this one. Chain 3, double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet again. So from here, it's just like the rows we've been doing. The only difference was we started out by slip stitching along this edge for a decrease. When we come to this end, we'll still be adding another block right here. And on row 9, we'll have a total of 8 blocks as well. So I'll see you as we reach the end. And now we finished row 9. So we decreased on this side, so we should still have 8 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see on this end, we're still increasing just like we were before. And we're going to do that one more time here in row 10. We've got one more increase here to make it this end before we need to start decreasing both sides to close up our rectangle. So to begin row 10, we once more start with our chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to be doing solid blocks here in row 10. And as I say, it's just like the other rows that we started before. We're adding a block at this end, and the row will be all the same until we get back down to this end where we don't want to add another one off this side. So I will see you here as we get to the end of row 10. So here we are at the end of row 10, and I've got one more block to make. I wanted to go ahead and make it together. You can see I've got one more space here that I can fill in. I've got my chain 3, and I've just got my 3 double crochets here to make. So the nice thing about these corner to corner patterns is that as long as you're paying a little bit of attention, and I say that because it's happened to me, you'll notice when you get to this final edge, if you go too far, you'll find you've put another block right there. So you'll just have to pull that back out. In total, in row 10, we should have still a total of 8 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because we increased at this end, but now we're not increasing at this end. To finish it up, what we need to do is go ahead and slip stitch to the chain 3 right next to it. We still want it attached, and then we'll be able to turn and loosely slip stitch back across this row. Now, beginning in row 11, we're going back to our open blocks, but we're also going to start decreasing on both sides. So that means we loosely slip stitch across this block to begin here, but then when we get to this end, we want to make this one right here our final block and not add another one to this edge right here. So that means in row 11, we'll have a total of only 7 blocks. Let's go ahead and get started again on this row together. I'm going to, remember, loosely slip stitch in the top of each of these double crochets. This lets us travel, but gives us nice stitches to work back into, whether it's for a border or for connecting our rectangles to each other. So there's 2, and there's 3. I also find it gives a nicer, straighter edge, but we will want to do a little bit of blocking when we're done. Now we slip stitch into this chain 3 right here, and that lets us sort of turn our angle here and start filling in those next blocks. So we just go ahead and work our open blocks, which is the double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all the way across for a total of 7 blocks. Make sure we don't add another one right there. And this is what it should look like at the end of row 11. We've got our open blocks here with our chain 1, skip 1 space, and we have a total of 7 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see I've slip stitched into the block next to it, but I haven't added another one right there. And from here on out, we're just going to keep doing those decreases on both sides. Rather than chaining 6, we'll slip stitch across the previous block so we can start filling in those gaps. That means in row 12, where we go back to our solid blocks, we'll have only 6 blocks in that row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The following row, we'll have 5, 4, 3, 2. Finally, we'll get back down to just 1 block. So I'll see you as we get closer to finishing up our rectangle. So here I have worked all the way through row 16. And as you can see, we had just 2 blocks in that row right there. Row 17 is our last block, and I wanted to point out that just like our first 2 rows were solid blocks, our last 2 rows are solid blocks. So now we can finish it up with just this one block that will finish up our beautiful rectangle. So to do that, I'm going to slip stitch in those next 3 stitches here, just as we've been doing before. Now, when it comes to slip stitching across the top of one of the open blocks, you can make your choice whether you want to slip stitch into the chain 1 or the chain 1 space. It's completely up to you, whatever you prefer. Let's see, I need to still slip stitch in that chain 3 space there. And then I can make my last block, which will be a solid block with 3 double crochets all into that chain 3 space. And then we slip stitch into that chain 3 right there. And you can see we have finished our rectangle. If I lay it out, you can see it's all made. All that's left is to add a border, which is of course completely optional. To add the border, I am going to turn and chain 1, although I actually like to chain 1 and then turn. And now we're going to work all the way around. I like to do a half double crochet evenly around the whole square by working 3 half double crochets in the side of each block and an extra half double crochet in each corner. This gives us a really nice solid border for joining to other pieces. So I've already got my chain one made. I'm going to work my half double crochets right in the top of this square. This one makes it pretty easy because this is the top of a square, so we've got the tops of those stitches to work into. So there's 3 half double crochets right across the top of that square. Then I know I need to work 3 half double crochets in the side of the stitch with an extra one right here in the corner. So I'm just going to go right into that chain 3 space, make it easy on myself. There's my extra corner stitch. And now I will put 3, oops, let me get in the right spot there, right in the side of this block. 1, 2, and 3. Now, I chose to go all the way around that chain 3 space. You can choose to do the same, or you can choose to work into that chain 3 if you prefer. I tend to go by just sort of depending on what project I'm working on, what I think looks best. So you can base it on your hand, your yarn, and your personal preferences. Now, here you can see we've come back to some stitches that have those slip stitches worked into the top. And this is where we can be really grateful that we made those nice and loose. They're a whole lot easier to get into. So there's 1, 2, and 3 stitches in the side of that block. The next little block here, of course, is a chain space. So again, I can choose to work into the chain itself or just go right on around that whole chain. It is totally up to you and just based on whatever you think is going to look best. So I just continue working all the way around and then join with a slip stitch to that first half double crochet made. And that's all we need to do to make our corner window rectangle. And that's how to crochet the corner window rectangle. If you'd like to support Warm Up America even more, you can donate $50 to their fund, which they use to send around these squares and help distribute the blankets. When you donate that $50, you'll get a packet of free crochet patterns, which will include the written pattern for the corner window rectangle. So please do check it out. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.